Here is your long, engaging, emotional 40-minute style YouTube story based on your title. No headings, just flowing paragraphs. Imagine walking into a nightmare so cruel, so unexpected, that your breath freezes in your chest before a single scream can escape. Now imagine living through it while holding your newborn child in your arms. If you're ready for a story that grips your heart from the first second to the last, stay with me, because what happened that day in the mountain village still feels like a miracle. And if you're new here, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be heard, and your support helps more people find them. Ilara had never imagined her life would come to this. She had been a quiet, hard-working young woman from the valley, a seamstress who stitched other people's happiness into wedding gowns and festival dresses. When she fell in love with Jorin, a wandering musician, everyone warned her he was too free, too wild, too unrooted. But she believed in his smile, in the warmth of his songs, in the promise that he would build a home with her. She believed, until the day he disappeared, leaving her with nothing but a growing belly and a house filled with unpaid debts. For months, she struggled. She took extra work. She mended clothes until her fingers cracked. She sold furniture, then dishes, then the very blankets she needed for winter. But nothing was enough. The moneylenders grew impatient, their voices sharpened by greed. And when the baby came, a tiny girl with soft curls and a fragile cry, Ilara realized she had no coin left and nowhere to run. The debt collectors arrived at dawn one morning, banging on her cottage door. Her daughter was barely 3 weeks old. They looked around, sneered at the empty rooms, and then made an offer so monstrous she dropped to her knees in disbelief. There was a man, a wealthy merchant from the mountains, who bought servants, and he paid generously for young women. Especially those with newborns. Ilara screamed, begged, pleaded, but her words fell on ears made of stone. They dragged her to a makeshift wooden platform in the center of the mountain village, a cold, wind-scarred place where even the sun seemed hesitant to shine. A crowd gathered, muttering, some horrified, some curious, some disturbingly eager. Ilara clutched her baby tightly, trying to shield her with her shawl, whispering, I'm here, I won't let them take you," though her own voice trembled with terror. The auctioneer stood tall, smug, tapping his cane for silence. "A young mother," he announced, "healthy, hard-working. And her infant, a bonus. Who will start the bidding?" Ilara's knees shook. The baby whimpered, sensing her mother's fear. Ilara pressed her lips to the child's head, tears falling silently. Was this truly the end? Was this how her daughter's life would begin, in chains, in servitude, in a world without love? Then the air changed. A gust of wind swept through the square, biting cold. People turned. At first Ilara saw only a shadow at the far end of the road, tall, broad, unmoving. Then he stepped into the weak daylight, boots crunching over snow and gravel. A man. A mountain man. Everyone recognized him instantly, Rowan Hale, the reclusive hunter who lived deep in the northern forest. They said he rarely spoke. They said he preferred wolves to people. They said he had seen too much loss, too much betrayal, and had turned his back on the world. But today, he had come with a rifle slung over his shoulder, and a gaze so sharp the entire crowd fell silent. The auctioneer tried to speak, but Rowan simply raised one hand, stopping him mid-sentence. He walked straight toward Ilara, his eyes never leaving her face. For a moment, she thought he meant to harm her too, everyone did. But then he did something no one expected. He knelt. Right in front of her. One knee in the dust. His voice was calm, steady, deep as the mountains themselves. "Stand up," he said quietly. "You and the child. You're coming with me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The auctioneer sputtered angrily, she belongs to, you cannot just." Rowan stood slowly, towering over him. If anyone here believes they have a right to sell a mother and her infant, he said, unslinging his rifle with deliberate ease, step forward. Say it to my face. Not a soul moved. Even the wind paused. Rowan turned to Elara again, softer now. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Elara shook her head, tears pouring freely. Then come with me, he said, extending his hand. No one will touch you again. Her fingers trembled as she placed her hand in his. The warmth of his grip felt like the first sunlight after a long winter. The debt collectors tried to protest, but Rowan simply paid off the amount on the spot, tossing a leather pouch heavy with coins at their feet. And if you ever come near her again, he murmured, you'll regret it. With that, he led Elara and her baby away from the platform, away from the village, away from the nightmare that nearly consumed them. The path to his mountain cabin was long and steep, but Rowan carried heavy logs one-handed for fire. Carrying a woman and child was nothing. Every few minutes he glanced at Elara, making sure she was warm, making sure the baby was breathing softly, making sure the terror in her eyes was beginning to fade. At the cabin, he lit a fire, prepared food, offered blankets. He said little, but his actions spoke more tenderly than any words ever could. Elara felt something she hadn't felt in months, safety. Days turned into weeks. Rowan kept his distance at first, giving her space, honoring her boundaries. But slowly, gently, a bond formed. He taught her how to gather herbs, how to mend nets, how to identify the call of owls. She taught him how to soften, how to smile again, how to speak to the child, whom he eventually held with a tenderness that made Elara's heart ache. But shadows from her past weren't done with her. One night, Jorin returned, the father of her child, not because he missed her, but because he'd learned she was living with a rich mountain man and wanted money. He threatened. He shoved. He reached for the baby. Elara screamed for help, and Rowan appeared like a storm, fury blazing in his eyes. He didn't raise his rifle. He didn't need to. His voice alone, low and trembling with rage, made Jorin stumble back and flee into the night. Elara broke down afterward, months of fear erupting all at once. Rowan held her, not as a savior, not as a protector, but as a man who understood pain deeper than words. You're safe, he whispered. Not because I'm strong. Because you're not alone anymore. And she believed him. Seasons passed. Snow melted. Flowers returned to the valley. Elara grew stronger, happier, braver. The baby grew too, giggling at Rowan's deep voice, grabbing his beard, tugging at his coat until he carried her everywhere. One spring evening, as the sunset painted the mountains gold, Rowan turned to Elara with quiet vulnerability. You and your daughter, you've brought life back into this place, he said. If you choose to stay, it won't be my cabin anymore. It will be our home. Elara felt her chest tighten with warmth, with gratitude, with something she had not dared to feel again, love. I'm staying, she whispered. We're staying. And from that moment on, the cabin in the mountains became a refuge of healing, safety, and newfound family, a place built not from fear, pain, or debt, but from kindness, courage, and second chances. If this story touched your heart even a little, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories waiting for you, stories that remind us that miracles are real, that courage exists in the unlikeliest places, and that sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one you were waiting for, but the one you never expected. If you'd like, I can also create a YouTube title, description, hashtags, keywords, thumbnail text, or shorten the story for TikTok/Reels.